Causing a nuisance in Britain could get you 2 years in jail or an unlimited fine if new antisocial laws are pushed through. And it could even apply to children as young as 10, which is really worrying civil liberties groups. RT's Polly Boiko has more.
Antisocial behavioural orders, or ASBOs as they're shortened to here in the UK, have been the brunt of many a joke for quite some time now, namely because of the quite bizarre things that police have reprimanded members of the public for in the past. Now, examples include a deaf child being given an ASBO for spitting in the street, or a 13-year-old girl being banned from saying the word grass for saying it too many times, and homeless people getting ASBOs for begging in the street. But that's being replaced with a new injunction to prevent nuisance and annoyance, which is called an IPNA for short. Now, these orders require only that an individual might engage in behaviour capable of causing annoyance. Now, the wording of this law is now much vaguer. The punishment is much harsher. It carries a penalty of up to 2 years in prison. Now, I don't know about you, but I personally know a lot of people, both adults and children above the age of 10, who can be extremely annoying at times. And that is precisely the problem that a lot of human rights campaigners are having with this law at the moment. They say that the lines between simply being annoying, which many of them will see as a fundamental human right, and being a criminal, well, those lines are now being blurred. And it's not just human rights campaigners that have taken issue with it. Police officers have been coming forward to say that they're worried that children are going to be needlessly criminalised with these new orders, and also for them dealing with things that people deem to be nuisances. Well, that's a royal nuisance for the police, because they are going to have to divert their attention away from fighting real crime. And now, another part of this draft bill that's causing a lot of concern are public spaces protection orders, which could theoretically be used to stop public protests from gathering. Now, human rights campaigners have even launched a petition in Parliament because they say that this is the biggest threat to freedom of protest in modern history. But I better go, because I have been speaking pretty loudly in our newsroom, and in case any of my colleagues think I have been too annoying, I could be slapped with an IPNA.
And let's now discuss this some more with Kerry-Anne Mendoza. She's a blogger and activist campaigning against this bill. Kerry-Anne, nice to see you here on RT. Welcome. So, annoying and causing nuisance are pretty vague terms, to say the least. So what exactly do the legislators mean here?
Well, essentially what they're attempting to do is give the police the authority to make any lawful protest immediately illegal, simply because it's, and I quote this directly from the legislation, may, has, or is likely to cause nuisance or annoyance. And as you can imagine, the whole point of protest is to cause nuisance and annoyance. It is to get in the way, to disrupt people in their ordinary daily lives so that you can have them focus on an otherwise ignorable issue, which is really important. And what this law does is actually then gives the police the authority to just in a moment declare that process illegal. People who then defy those orders won't be put in front of a magistrate or have any intervention by a court of law. They will receive an on-the-spot fine of up to £5,000 and potentially a prison sentence. And what's even more unnerving about this piece of legislation is it also allows the police to then bar people from what they call a locality, and locality hasn't been defined, so it could be a city, a county, a country. Nobody really knows, and again, all without the intervention of a court of law. So obviously anyone seeking, and this law has passed, this is the worst and scariest part of this, is that the House of Commons, the democratic body for the UK, has already passed this law. The only thing that stands between it and the statute are the House of Lords, who are debating it this afternoon, and royal assent. So we're all, you know, anyone with a stake in civil liberties and freedom to protest should be really alarmed by this bill. And as you rightly point out, equally, children's campaigners, the Children's Commissioner, Dr. Maggie Atkinson, has also spoken out against this bill because it essentially also criminalises childhood. You know, any children that could, you know, be playing out in the street could suddenly become subject to these orders. And where they differ from ASBOs, which are currently in place, is that they don't only stop you doing things, but they also introduce something called positive obligations, which mean they can make you do things. So it could be you would have to report to a police station at a certain time every day. Okay. Any of these things, and that's all without judicial intervention of any kind.
Okay, so I guess you believe that this legislation is dangerous, but isn't antisocial behaviour is dangerous and needs to be scrapped and needs to be well, actually people need to do something about it?
Well, I think a lot has been done about it, and a lot of these laws already exist. We already have antisocial behaviour orders which have already been overused and abused by police forces that are just really seeking to clamp down on people. We've got the case in Manchester where a soup kitchen was banned by an ASBO. We've got homeless people that are having ASBOs applied to them. That means begging then becomes illegal. If they're caught begging, they go to prison or receive a fine. So it's not that anyone is underestimating the impact of antisocial behaviour, but we already have a raft of legislation in place to deal with these issues, and actually the attempt to rebrand this legislation as somehow dealing with antisocial behaviour, I think is a great leap and quite a cynical one by our politicians, who are, what they're really after is to avoid the impact of protest and of marches and of strikes which seek to challenge austerity, which is being meted out to people up and down the country right now.
All right, Kerry-Anne Mendoza, live there. Kerry-Anne, thank you very much indeed for sharing your views with us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on.